Hello everyone! As a lot of you have requested this game, here it is. It's a game from round 1 of the 2018 Sinquefield Cup. We already saw a game between Magnus Carlsen and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, so here is a nice game between Levon Aronian and Sergei Karjakin. Now, before we check out the game, we do have a nice photo challenge, so best of luck to everyone. It's a photo from 2014, also from the Sinquefield Cup. There is Levon Aronian on the right, but the question is, who is the gentleman on the left? Best of luck to everyone, like I said, and along with the photo challenge, we also have a very nice photo of Magnus Carlsen from the official Grand Chess Tour Twitter page. There you have it. It's a very nice photo, and they had like a little thing. They said you should caption this on their Twitter page, so I was very impressed by it. So indeed, do caption this photo in the comments. It's very strange what is Carlsen doing. It's like he has something written in his hand, or is he like... should I use this hand to crush my opponents, or perhaps the other one? But, you know, I'm only one person. There are many more of you. I'm sure you will be much more creative than that. So best of luck as well with the photo challenge and capturing this photo. So let's get straight into it. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's something I saved for later. So e4 by Aronian, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. The Ruy Lopez on the board, and everyone was very impressed that Aronian went for e4. Knight to f6, the Berlin defense. And here, as I already clicked it, there you have it. The official arbiter of this tournament, Chris Bird, tweeted, I swear at the players' meeting we said no Berlins, must be my accent. So as two of the games did go into a Berlin, I don't think anyone was paying attention to him, or perhaps he's only joking. But okay, we have castles, knight captures on e4, we enter the Rio Gambit, and now d4. Grabbing this pawn back immediately never proved to lead to anything good for white, so there's no reason for anyone to do it. d4 was played, and now knight to d6. Trying to grab this pawn and keep your extra pawn, runs into rook to e1, and after d5 simply queen captures on d4, and white has plenty of compensation for this extra pawn. So this is a well-known line. Knight e6 played plenty of times. Bishop captures, d captures on e5, knight to f5, and now comes queen captures on d8, king captures, and knight to c3. King back to e8, we have h3, and now h5. This seems to be a new move, so perhaps something Karjakin is working on. Let's see how Aronian prepared. I'm not prepared, but replied to it. Bishop to g5. It's a very nice diagonal, and the bishop, you know, is very... its presence will be felt there on g5. Bishop to e6, and now rook to d1, keeping a very nice... keeping an eye on that d8 square. If this rook wasn't here, then rook to d8 would be checkmate. You have to always keep an eye for things like this. Knight to c3, and now rook to d2, preparing to double up on the d file. Rook to d8, rook captures on d8, king captures on d8, and now rook to d1. We have king back to e8, and now b3, as the bishop was eyeing the a2 pawn, so now this knight is free to move. h4, a very nice idea by Karjakin that allows this rook to enter the game via rook to h5. So perhaps if white played something like this, then ideas like captures, and rook, for example, to h5 would be an idea. Bishop to c1 in this position by Aronian, not allowing any such tricks. Black still has the bishop pair, but until he really makes them, you know, target something, they are not all that powerful. a5. We have knight to e2, bishop to d5, and now comes knight to e1, remaneuvering the knight. Bishop back to e6, and now knight to f4, pressuring the bishop on e6. Bishop goes back to c8, and now comes knight to f3. Rook to h6, preparing to bring the rook into the game. We have knight to h2, trying to prove that the rook isn't all that great here via knight to g4. So rook goes back. As Karjakin knows, Aronian is bringing the knight to g4. As he does, he prepares an exchange, knight to h6. We have knight back to e3, and now goes knight back to f5, again going for an exchange. Knight to c4, again Aronian avoids the exchange, going for the a5 pawn. g5, first getting rid of the knight. We have knight back to e2, and now b6, defending the a5 pawn. Knight to d2, the knight is no longer useful on c4. So again, remaneuvering. Knight to g7, knight to e4, and now knight to e6, as g5 has been played. Now the knight from e6 and the pawn keep very nicely an eye on this f4 square. And here we have knight to f6 check, the best move in the position, where black is pretty much forced to give up his bishop pair. If you try something like king to f8, then you get knight to d4. Knight captures, rook captures, and there's no good way to defend the g5 pawn. You would still have to get rid of it and then go something like rook g8, but it would be pointless to allow white such activity. So might as well capture it right away. Bishop captures, pawn captures, and now rook to g8, you have to defend the g5 pawn. f3. Rook to g6, attacking the f6 pawn, and here bishop to b2, defending the f6 pawn. Bishop to d7, and now knight to c1, yet again remaneuvering with the knight. c5, and now comes bishop to e5. King to d8, we have knight to d3, and now king to c8. And here we have a beautiful maneuvering idea by Aronian. For example, if you played something like king to f2 here, started bringing your king into the game, then you will run into this knight to d4 move that will prevent your bishop from going backwards, and now you do have to do something. For example, it's a very nice square for the knight. The c2 pawn is under attack. If you push it away, knight to c6 is coming, your bishop is under attack, and you have no squares left for your bishop. I mean, you do. You can go bishop to h2, but then you've left this f6 pawn unguarded. The rook captures, and you've just lost a pawn. So here Aronian gets a beautiful idea. He plays bishop back to b2. And I say this is a beautiful idea because now this knight to d4 idea that prevents this bishop from guarding the f6 pawn runs into knight to e5. And now you can't really capture it. I mean, you have to, but it's not all that great. After you capture, you get knight captures here. And now you cannot recapture because you get c3 and you lose the knight. For example, king captures c3, the knight is pinned. So you will lose a piece here, but instead you have to go rook to d6. Defend the knight here, but and prevent this knight from escaping. But white still has an answer. Rook captures here, c captures, and now knight e5, and a knight and the bishop will be better than this lonely rook. Even d3 is impossible because the knight is guarding it. So after this bishop to b2 move, bishop to e8 is played, not allowing this knight e5 captures on d7 idea. Rook to e1, again you cannot move the knight. As the bishop is now unguarded, we have rook to g8, now the rook has to guard the bishop, rook to e4, and now king to d8. We have king to f2 and knight to f8. And now you can see how with this shrewd maneuvering, Aronian forced Karjakin to push all of his pieces and the king to the back rank. Also, I will most probably use this for the thumbnail. So, knight to e5. A very nice move, centralizing the knight. Knight to h7, attacking the f6 pawn, and now f4. Again, a beautiful move by Aronian, not allowing this pawn on f6 to be captured. G captures on f4 seems to be the best idea here. Knight captures isn't all that great because it runs into knight captures on f7 with check. So you don't have time to capture white's rook with check, you have to capture the knight. Now comes bishop captures with check, king moves, and now f captures on g5. The bishop is on f6, so the pawn on g5 is guarded. A very nice position for white. White even gets an extra pawn. And this h4 pawn is on a dark square, so it's a very weak pawn. You will not be able to defend it. So after f4, rook to h8 is played by Karjakin, and now comes knight to f3, pressuring the g5 pawn. G captures on f4, we have rook captures on f4, and now knight back to f8. Again, the knight is forced to backwards rank. Rook captures on h4, grabbing a pawn. Rook captures, knight captures, and now bishop to c6. And okay, white is now up a pawn, but if the knights are exchanged, the bishops are of opposite colors, so perhaps black can hold this. King to e3, Aronian improves the position of his king, and now king to d7. Karjakin does the same. g4, and now comes knight to g6. Here, Karjakin offers a trade of knights, saying that he will be able to hold this opposite color bishop endgame a pawn down. And Aronian says, no, you don't. Even though the engine really prefers this knight to f5 move, Aronian says you will not be able to hold this. F captures on G6 is played, and now comes the bishop to E5, and here Aronian shows why this is great, because black has no good answer to bishop captures on C7. I might also use this as a thumbnail, it's hard to say. This is a threat, and of course, even if you play something like bishop to D5, now preventing this, as the bishop is already guarding the F7 square, then you allow king here to here, and it's all over. So after this bishop to E5 move, Karjakin started his own expansion on the queen side. This of course allows bishop captures here. Now you're not allowed to capture the bishop because there's no stopping this pawn now. And A4. We have first the bishop to B6 attacking the C5 pawn, but now pawn captures here. Pawn captures here, and now G5. There was no point in playing something like C4 because after captures now, okay, black has a pass pawn, but it's not a very useful pass pawn. Black can't keep an eye on the pawns on the king side and the pass pawn on the queen side. So after C captures on B3, G5 was played, bishop captures on C5, and now king to E6. We have bishop to D4, bishop to G2 now, attacking the H3 pawn. So also a very nice exercise. Feel free to pause the video here and find the winning idea for white. Or an idea that will lead to a winning position for white. Just, you know, if you're faced with this bishop to G2 move in a blitz game, you have to play something, you have to know what to play. I will give it a second for you to decide, of course, and for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. You are an excellent endgame player, and especially an opposite colored bishop's endgame player. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, H4 is the idea, which is funny because, you know, H4 is Aronian's signature move. G captures on H4, and now king to F4, preparing to meet this H3 move with king to G3. So okay, king to F7, we have G5 now, and we have H3. King has to go to G3 to protect to guard against pawn to H2. King goes to G6, and now bishop to E3, guarding the G5 pawn here. King goes back to F7, bishop to D2 now, we have king back to G6, and now, as white is up a pawn, the bishop is nicely placed on D2, so this was never even an option. A4. We have captures, Aronian creates a pass pawn on the queen side as well, and now king to F7. A5, we have bishop to F1, you have to protect this pawn from ever reaching the allied square. Bishop to F4, and now comes king back to G6. King to G4 was played here, king to F7, king here. Now, of course, the threat is even G6, so you have to prevent this. Bishop to D3 with check, king moves, and now bishop goes back. And here, white is completely winning. There is nothing to do here. A couple of more moves were played. King D6, we have bishop to D3, now comes king C5, and it was in this position on move 69 that Sergei Karjakin resigned the game. As you can see, this pawn can never go forward as the bishop is guarding the dark square, and the king will simply, after something like king G6 is played, the king is coming to B6, and now there is no stopping A6. Whatever you play, A6 is coming, you have to give up the bishop, and now the winning plan is pretty simple. The bishop is still guarding the H2 pawn, you will simply march your king over to F5, push G6, push G7, you know, and win the game, or F7 and check with the bishop, and you know how it goes. So yeah, that's the game. A very nice victory for Levon Aronian, and Karjakin was unable to prevent him from reaching a full point, even by using the Berlin defense, which, as we can see, was not allowed as the official arbiter, you know, forbid it. So yeah, that's the video, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it and that you're enjoying the coverage of the 2018 Sinquefield Cup. I would like to thank N. Johnson and Agan Matros Dog for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. We have a very nice video planned for this evening. It's a scandal that you know, really caught the chess world by surprise some 10 years ago. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And for the end of this video, let's enjoy another photo of Genie and Rex Sinquefield presenting Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with his big fat check from last year, which shows that if you are a really good player, you can even you know, make a living by actually playing chess. So yeah, thank you all, and I will see you soon.